Welcome to another class of AWS course. In this class, I'm going to show you and I'm going to tell you about the briefs of the cloud services models offered by AWS. And those are going to be SaaS, PaaS, IaaS, and also FaaS. This is going to be a very important class to understand about these models, and these models are very important in infrastructuring your own server. So make sure not to skip this class because if you do, you might miss out on something very important without knowing, and then you might face a bit of hassle later on. So without any further ado, let's move on to our class by moving on to our presentation of our cloud services brief. First off, we have the SaaS, which is known as the software as a service. The definition of SaaS is that it delivers software applications over the internet on a subscription basis, removing the needs for users to install, manage, or maintain the software, as this is a web service. The characteristics of SaaS are first off is the accessibility. It is accessible from any device with an internet connection. It could be your phone, your tablet, your TV, your device, let's say maybe your PC, laptop, anything. It just needs internet connection and that's all. Then we have is managed service. The provider manages the infrastructure, including software updates, security, and also maintenance. So all of these comes with the package, starting off with the infrastructure where you don't have to write any codes, including the software updates. You don't have to get inside and update it like manually. It's going to update on its own. And even if it's on manual, you can also change it to automatical and also keep it updated on your own. Then it also has the security, which is going to give you without any information breach and the maintenance of the whole service due to its subscription based. Then we have its subscription based, typically offered on a subscription model, allowing for predictable cost. So it's going to be payable, or let's say you are only going to pay as long as you need to use it and as long as your server needs to use it. Okay. Then let's move on to our next service, or let's say the example of SaaS. Google Workspace. Productivity and collaboration tools, including Gmail, Docs, and also Drives, use SaaS. You've seen about OneDrive. That is also a part of Google and also its own drive. It uses that subscription-based model so that you can use it up to that specific amount of time and that specific amount of storage. Then we have is Microsoft Office 365, which is also a cloud-based suite for Office applications and also services. If you are totally new to Microsoft, which maybe you are not, because most people who are used to devices or maybe even the laptop or PC has used Microsoft at least even once. So you know about its services. Then we have is Salesforce. The customer relationship management, which is also known as the CRM platform, also uses this type of example or this type of services of SaaS, which is subscription based. Then we have is use cases, email and collaboration tool, customer relationship management, and also enterprise resource planning, which is ERP in short. Now let's move on to the next service, which is PaaS, which is also known as Platform as a Service. The definition of PaaS is that it provides a platform that allows developers to build, run, and manage applications without worrying about the underlying infrastructure. This is mostly used, or this is very popular among people who are new to these type of services, because that specific person or that specific, let's say even an industry, does not have to think about the underlying infrastructure because most of the services are going to be given by the PaaS. So what are the characteristics of PaaS, the development tools. It includes tools for developing, testing, and also deploying application in case of making your own app. So you can create your own app inside of that server or using that service, test it out in that specific DNS or specific server or that environment, and also deploy that application just by using that specific platform. Abstracted infrastructure. The provider manages servers, storage, and networking, enables developers to focus on coding because the providers manages every servers. So you don't have to think about that specific environment, which is basically a safe environment for actually testing them out so that the developers can only focus on coding instead of any other stuff, which is used by all of the developers that are on the market right now, or even who are trying to build more. Then we have is scalability, which is a built-in scalability to handle various workloads. It could be low, it could be high, but everything is going to be managed and also organized by the PaaS service. So what are the examples of PaaS service? Google App Engine, which is a platform for building and also deploying applications on Google's infrastructure. So you can see like when you go off the App Store or maybe even some APK files, which are also not on app stores, but you can find them, you can use them. You can see in a couple of cases, let's say a couple of apps are not found on the Play Store or the App Store. So where can they be found? They can be found on specific links and specific environments or specific servers from where you'll be able to download and use them or use it on your platform at the same time. So what basically happens is that you can run those things inside of the Google App Engine and then test them out and then also deploy these applications on Google infrastructure. And also as the example I said, a couple of apps are not found in couple of sites and even Play Store or App Store. What happens is that when it does not meet up that specific security requirements, it cannot be deployed in the Google's infrastructure. So what happens is that it becomes an open source and then you have to download it from a third-party link. Then we have is Microsoft Azure App Services, which is a platform for building and also hosting web application. This is a very popular site and also a very popular app service, which is used by a lot of people and a lot of developers right now. Then we have is Heroku, which is also a cloud platform for building, running, and also operating applications just like you do in Google App Engine. Then we have is the use cases of it. Web and mobile application development, API development and also management, and also application lifecycle management. So these are what it is used for. Then we have is IaaS, which is known as Infrastructure as a Service. The definition of IaaS is that it provides virtualized computing resources over the internet, allowing user to rent virtual machines, storages, and networks on a pay-as-you-go basis, which is a very important and also a very compatible service right now. So what are the characteristics of IaaS? First off comes the scalability. Resources can be scaled up or down based on demand. And also it's going to depend on the storage. If you want to save more storage, make it low. If you want to, or if you have a higher storage, you can scale it up, increase up the size, and then keep it on your storage, and it's going to have the best security there is. Then we have is control. Users have control over the operating system, storage, and also the deployed applications. So thus, in case they have the ownership, they can also remove the application, change the application, make more updates, and also change the storage of that specific system or that app. So you can like already see as an example is that the apps or games or whatever you use on your device. You can see in a couple of times when there is a system update of any specific application, or maybe even a game. What happens is that it changes up the size just a bit. Maybe sometimes it increases, sometimes it also decreases. So it depends on the control. If the developers want to reduce the load or reduce the size, they can do it because it has the scalability service. So they have full control over the application, even if it is on or working on the servers as, let's say, a real-time service. Then we have is cost efficiency. It reduces the need for physical hardware and also associated cost. Obviously, you can see a couple of industries, companies, and even a lot of people have physical hardwares and associated cost. Because when you have a physical hardware, or let's say even a physical server, it takes up a lot of money to actually build one or actually manage one. Okay. And you also have that, let's say, problematic thought, or maybe let's say even the thought in your mind that what happens if that server gets destroyed, because all of the data inside of that server is going to be destroyed. But when you use IIAS or IaaS, it's going to control everything inside of that web developing software, or maybe even not a software, which is basically a web service. So what are the examples of IaaS? Amazon EC2, which is the Elastic Compute Cloud, which is a virtual server for running application. So obviously you don't want anything which does not work properly to be out in the web. Obviously you have to run it, test it. So for that, you can see Amazon EC2 gives you out that virtual server. Then we have is Google Compute Engine, virtual machines running on Google's infrastructure. So obviously you cannot create a lot of services without using Google Compute Engine. So what happens is that the virtual machine runs on the Google infrastructure and allows you to test it out inside of that. Then we have is Microsoft Azure Virtual Machines, virtual machines for a variety of computing solutions. So obviously, if you want to fix out a couple of problems inside of your app, you can use Microsoft Azure Virtual Engines so that you can fix a variety of computing solutions. So what are the use cases of IaaS? It helps for hosting websites and also applications before even deploying them. Then we have is data storage and also backup. And the last one is disaster recovery solution. Just like I said, if the physical server gets destroyed, you will lose everything or you will lose all the data. But if you're using this web service, you can recover it anytime you want, even if you accidentally remove it or even if it gets destroyed. Then we have is FaaS, which is function as a service. The definition of FaaS is that it allows user to execute code in response to events without provisioning or managing the server. So just like you've seen in my previous class about FaaS, you don't need a specific infrastructure or a whole team to manage it and provision it. You just need FaaS and it will do everything on its own. It's going to execute the code so that every problem is fixed. It is also known as the serverless computing. It does not need a server, but it uses the virtual environment to use specific other, let's say, maybe a runtime or even, let's say, an environment to work on, maybe even Google, Azure, Microsoft, and all of those. Okay. The characteristics of FaaS are that event driven. Functions are triggered by events such as HTTP request, database changes, or file uploads. So let's say you are searching for anything on the Google. You can see sometimes you get a specific result. Sometimes you see there is different result. So what happens is that when any file gets uploaded or the database is changed, it's going to also change inside when you are using FaaS on your own server. No server management. The cloud provider manages the infrastructure, scaling, and resource allocation. It's not going to check out or analyze your storage, but it's going to scale the resources and also allocate it so that it looks very organized and you have your data whenever you need it inside of that specific allocation. Cost efficiency. Users pay only for the execution time and resources consumed by their functions. So you are only going to pay when you are using or just the time when you are using these resources and these services. So what are the examples? AWS Lambda. Run code in response to events such as changes to data in an S3 bucket or updates to a DynamoDB table. Google Cloud Functions. Event-driven functions to run on Google's infrastructure. Microsoft Azure Function. On-demand execution of code triggered by events. You can see from 3 of these is that all of them are run automatically without even having the infrastructure on your own. So everything is going to be executed by the code of command by this specific service. So what are the use cases of this? Real-time data processing, which actually helps you to actually update on real time too. Microservices architecture. It also fixes up the architecture with the allocation and also automation and orchestration of tasks. So everything is automated and also orchestration. So what is the summary of these cloud services? SaaS, which is software as a service, delivers software applications over the internet managed by the provider. So this means you are going to use this service, but you have to manage on your own. Then we have is PaaS, which is platform as a service, provides a platform for developing, testing, and also deploying applications without managing infrastructure. So you can also develop and test out and deploy applications, but you don't have to worry about the infrastructure. You just have to worry and you just have to think about the coding. IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service, offers virtualized computing resources such as virtual machines and storages over the internet. So obviously, if you try to get your own storage when you are trying to build an app or build a service, you're going to, or it's going to take a lot of money, because to actually invest in them, it's basically sometimes even life's work. So IaaS has that covered. Then we have is FaaS, which is function as a service. It executes the code in response to events without the need to manage servers, often referred to as a serverless computing. Each service model offers unique advantage and caters to different needs, from simple software usage to complex application development, and also the infrastructure management of your own service or even your own application. So hope you understood everything about this class on how you are going to know or about the brief of these cloud services or these cloud models. Okay? If you still have any confusion or any question about any part of this lesson, feel free to ask me anytime. I'm always there to help you out. But just make sure you do not skip any part of this class, because every part of this lecture or this class is very important before getting into AWS as a career. So thank you for watching this video again. And without any further ado, let's move on to our next class of AWS.